I'm Lake Miller.
And I'm Hannah Brown. Welcome to Gem City Diversity, a podcast where we talk about diversity and inclusion in the Dayton area. We're from the National Conference for Community and Justice of Greater Dayton. We're NCCJ. NCCJ works in the Miami Valley to increase understanding around the topics of diversity and inclusion. In this episode of Gem City Diversity, I got the chance to talk with Manny Dorville about code switching. We discussed what code switching means to him, his experience with it, and his perspective on it. Enjoy! I am sitting down with Manny today, so thank you for being here with me, Manny. And I'd first like you to just kind of introduce yourself, give a little bit about who you are, what you do, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thanks for having me. Full name is Emmanuel Dorville. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. Been in Dayton, the Dayton area for about, say, 5-6 years, going on 6 years now. Recent graduate of Central State University with a manufacturing engineering degree. Currently, as of today, time is it, like 3? Accepted an offer with General Motors to work in the Dayton area full time. So it's currently what I'm doing outside of this. But yeah, I'm just glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you again. And I'm glad you're going to be sticking to the Dayton area. So I'm wondering first if you can kind of give what your definition of code switching is.
Okay. I say my definition of code switching would just be understanding there is a time and a place for everything. I say from my experience, like coming from Miami, there is a lot of, it's its own dialect. Being from Miami and coming here, I can understand. I'm like, oh, everybody doesn't speak the same as me. So, even in that situation, understanding that I would have to code switch and really enunciate, my words so everybody can understand me. And so everybody can take me as serious as possible. So I say that's one example. A funny thing, background, so after graduating from high school in Miami, Florida, I went to boarding school in New Hampshire to play football, to reclass, trying to get a D1 scholarship. Just coming from Miami, is football is the lifeblood. So that was code switching for an entire year, just to make sure that I didn't rub anyone the wrong way, that I was, able to, be acclimated into that community, because a lot of people came from backgrounds that weren't like myself. So it was just actively understanding that I'm still myself at the end of the day, but like I said, it's a time and a place for everything, But even on the other side of it, I, as a college student, I still had fun, and found my, my circle where I can, it was a time and a place where I could just be me to a fault at the end of the day, But I feel like that's everyone, so that's my experience. So
awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay. So you've talked a little bit about like how you felt you maybe code switched growing up in high school, maybe in college a little bit. Do you think you code switch now?
I do still code switch now, for several reasons. I feel like it's more of sometimes it's like a trust thing. Like if I don't necessarily know you and I only know you in like a certain setting, where, whether it's work or, where I only get like a few first impressions, you may not, it's not necessarily someone I'm going to try to have, bring over, even before that, bring over, go to dinner, so that I feel like first impressions are big for me. So I would, definitely code switch, and then over time start to, break down those barriers and those walls. But I feel like I keep them up to make sure that I'm taken serious at all times, because I feel like if I'm not, you never know who's, you never know who you're speaking to. You never know who's watching or listening. So I feel like that's why I code switch and how I code switch. So yeah.
All right. Yeah. The way you talk about it is just kind of as if it's almost like a survival mechanism, a defense mechanism that kind of helps you remain who you are and kind of figure out like who you are around certain people and who certain people are around you.
Yeah.
And thank you.
No problem.
Do you think people notice that you code switch? Or maybe people, once you kind of get to know them and you do break those barriers down, do you think they notice any kind of switch or difference?
That's a great question. I don't think I pay attention enough to see if people notice if I code switch. Um, I'll say people notice, but it's like if people notice, there's people that code switch themselves as well. I'll say from my experience, I went to a 99% African American high school, HBCU, so historically Black college and university. I was working in marketing at General Motors, and I was working with 3 other HBCU fellows. So I've been in environments where I feel like always around people that understood code switching. We didn't say like, you got to code switch right now, we're going into this meeting, but it was like you're saying this. I feel like for me it was a defense mechanism, but for the people that I was around, it was also a defense mechanism, but not in a negative light. It's just first impressions. But I feel like, for example, like this summer, we would be in meetings with the other fellows, and when we're in front of our advisors, leadership, we understand, okay, first impressions, because we are representing our universities, ourselves. But I know when we're in our own meetings, even though we're taking care of business, I'm a totally different me, but it's still being a part of the team. But what I bring to the table, when it's kind of just us, it's still me at the end of the day. And it's still gonna be me when in front of, leadership or whoever. But, like that outgoing personality is not going to change. That, I don't want to say that brashness or confidence is not going to change. It's just going to be presented differently.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And yeah, the added layer of being around other people who may are also code switching, like that's just a whole other layer of kind of just, I don't even know what the word to use is, of just, it's a new layer to the whole situation. And it's kind of interesting to like, when you're close with someone, you can tell when they're maybe, hiding behind a mask a little bit about who they are. You just know people very well. So it's just when you kind of know that side to somebody, it adds that whole other layer of when you're around other people.
Yeah. And I say to add on that as well, I feel like at a certain point, it kind of goes from code switching to understanding like, okay, how do I incorporate myself in everything without giving off a bad first impression? As you get older, like in high school, I code switched a lot, just because I felt like I'm like, all right, I'm in class, but I'm, like when you're in class, you act a certain way, but when you are in the courtyard with your friends and your mom walks up or a teacher sees you, kind of like, it automatically goes like, oh, got to go back to that, but as you get older, it's, like I said, incorporating, like, I don't want to lose myself, but I'm still a professional. But like now, I would have kind of been afraid to make jokes in front of leadership, but I do that anyway. In interviews, if they're not laughing, I'm nervous, because I want to break down that invisible wall, so where it's now it's a genuine conversation. I don't necessarily have to code switch because I can just speak to who I am and my experiences, without feeling I have to say the right thing. I'm saying, giving you the answering to the best of my ability. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you. If you didn't code switch, maybe growing up in high school, wherever, if you didn't code switch, how do you think your experience would have been different?
For me personally, I think my experience would have been night and day, because for myself, I come from a very, very humble beginnings. My mom came to the U.S. in '85 on a boat to make sure that me and my siblings got better opportunities. That was the gist of what she did. It was a lot more, but it was a lot more complex, but that was the gist of what she did. So she wasn't necessarily able to provide opportunities herself, to make sure that we were able to succeed. She tried her best, but like some opportunities she necessarily couldn't. It wouldn't have been her. It would have been opportunities we got through other people. So I learned how to I feel like if I didn't know how to code switch, I would have missed out on opportunities that helped get me here. I'd have burnt bridges that helped get me here. If I didn't understand, like, there's a time and a place for everything, which is the essence of what code switching is. Because some people, all they have to go off is, you know, I say, you know, people have eyes and ears first, so their first impression, and they kind of go from there. People make decisions based off that. You know, some divine intervention, you know, maybe for all of our lives are included. For me specifically, my name's Emmanuel. God is with us. That's the definition. So it's like a lot of experiences. It was just all first impression. People were willing to, you know, be like, you know, I don't know him. I want to help him. So I feel like, if I didn't know how to coach, I would have probably still been in Miami right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, I mean, it kind of just changes your perspective on things, and kind of where you go, you know, and then like first impressions, that's all everyone has, you know, it's all about those first impressions, whether you're code switching or you're not. And everyone in some way, you know, hides a little bit about who they are when they're meeting new people, you know, that's, or maybe not everybody, but a lot of people probably do. But then it's just taking that extra step with people who code switch and feel like they need to code switch to survive and to be all that they can be.
Gotcha.
So that's a interesting perspective.
It's for me, I know for me specifically, like my brother went to Central State as well. He's 10 years older than me. So when he was in college, he was, you know, kind of prepping me, you know, because like I said, the environment in Miami, I left Miami for a reason. It wasn't, you know, kind of conducive to me being successful in a nutshell. So little stuff like it went from code switching to me understanding like, oh, this is kind of, you know, how you get somewhere and be successful. You know, from him telling me, like looking at my Facebook, like everybody's always watching, you can't say that. Or, you know, when you text, that kind of reflects on you being able to write an email or an essay. You know, it's just those habits he kind of instilled in me early. So it went from code switching where I'm like, you know, when I text my brother, I'm gonna text this way, but with my friends, I'm gonna text this way. So it all tied together. So as I got a little older and understood a little bit more, I you know, went from I text everybody the same way, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Take a brief pause while I think. Does code switching influence any other aspects of your life? Like what kind of music you listen to, what maybe food you're eating around. I know you said you're working from home, but just kind of those things that are other things that help you present kind of who you are, the media, what you are like on media, anything like that. If that question makes sense.
That's a good question. To the extent of like music and food, not necessarily. I would say it's more like in my dress, because I think that was kind of the like my undergrad experience was very unique, and I loved it because I was comfortable knowing that, you know, I can handle business and people would really, it's really, you know, the aspect of first impressions based off just people seeing you in eyes and ears, it was lessened a little bit. You know, I was okay with understanding I can go to a meeting with a fitted cap, t-shirt, Adidas sweatpants, and some Jordans. You know, if that was the situation that I was in, I was okay with that. I felt comfortable. I wasn't necessarily like, man, I don't know. I wasn't second guessing it, you know, but even when I was working from home, you know, with certain people on Fridays, I would dress how I wanted to dress, like casual Fridays. And I was confident in that setting. So it's more in my dress. Like now I'm becoming more careful because before I definitely was code switching. You know, I was, my brother has a big influence on my life because I know there was a time where like in high school, I wear like, you know, like the boat shoes. I would look like real preppy, and that wasn't the environment that I was in. So it was code switching, but like backwards. Like I would wear that, but I would like with my friends that didn't dress like that. I also have to, you know, in a nutshell, like hold my own. Like I'm still from here though. Like don't let it fool you at the end of the day. So I say that's, you know, definitely my dress from my experience. But like my food, eat the same. Still into the same music. I try to be more understanding and try to branch out, but I don't think it's changed too much, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, thank you. And then, so last question. What would you say to your younger self or a young person who's listening maybe about code switching? Anything you would say to them about the topic of code switching?
It's the best one. What would I say to my younger self? It's funny. I do have a younger self, and that's my nephew. Because everybody say he reminds everyone of me. So I say, I would kind of stress the importance of understanding there's a time and a place for everything, but don't lose yourself in trying to do that. And then you kind of are unhappy at a certain point, like, this isn't me, and that's because I feel like that's the realization that I came to when I was on my own, I'm like, I'm trying to please everyone else and, give the first impression that they want me to give, but I'm trying to give the first impression that I want to give, being cognizant of that. So that's what I would say, yeah, because I had a mentor that was like, he recently passed away, but he was like in his 70s. So his perspective was very strict. It was like a strict regimen, and he was like, kind of dress for you where you want to be, don't dress where you are. So I feel like, I'm like, dang, I don't want to have to wear a collared shirt everywhere. I didn't want to do that. But, I feel like there's a time and a place, so it's, you necessarily I couldn't wear a fitted and Adidas sweatpants everywhere either. So it's just a balance, like just have a balance, don't code switch too much. Don't miss out on opportunities. You kind of have to make that decision for yourself. I can't necessarily make it for my younger self. So that's what I would say. It's all, hopefully this helps with that perspective, which is the intention. So it's ultimately, it's going to change. How we look at it 5-10 years from now might change. Our perspective might change because we might be looked at as a little older. Hopefully not. We're not, but it's true. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely, it's a bit about, like those first impressions, those meeting new people, there is a time and a place for everything.
Mm-hmm.
We've all learned that. But keeping your identity still and, staying true to your identity.
Yeah.
And not losing that, because once you lose those things that make you who you are, the way you like to dress, the movies you love to watch, the music you listen to, then you're left like with nothing almost. When you're not, when you don't have any of those things.
Like everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's definitely about, everything is better when the world is diverse because everyone has so many things that make them different.
Yeah.
And keeping those identities and staying true to who you are.
Right.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for this.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for sitting down and having this conversation.